Hello, everyone. This is a part 2 of a chapter 4 lecture. We know market consists of buyers and sellers. In this session, we're going to discuss the suppliers, the sellers side of the market, and learn a few economics terms related to the supply of a good or service. And the discussion of supply resembles very much the discussion of a demand, so it shouldn't take much time. So we're going to turn to the lecture note. Supply. This is the seller's side of the market. So what is the quantity supplied of a good? Just like we defined the quantity demanded of a good, the quantity supplied of a good is the amount of a good that sellers are willing and able to sell at the specific price. So sellers will produce only when they are interested in the production of a good or service. And it should be profitable. No sellers will be willing to produce a good or service for a loss. So the two keywords here are: first, sellers have a willingness to produce a good or service, and they should be able to produce such a good or service for profit. So willingness and ability, these two are the keywords. Then what is the law of supply? Well, we observed in the marketplace that people tend to buy more of a good when price is relatively low, and the people tend to buy less of a good when its price is relatively high. Now, if you are a seller, then you are motivated by profit. You are producing a good or service in hopes of making some profit. So naturally, sellers will have a greater incentive to produce and sell more when the price of the good they sell is rising. And sellers will have relatively weak incentive when the price of the good they sell becomes lower. So let's say here, to produce 1 unit of a good, let's say cost per unit is, let's say, $5. So if a price is $8, then what? For each unit you sell, you enjoy a profit of what? Price you receive minus the cost each unit is $5, so you enjoy a profit of $3. But if price somehow is increasing, so now you can charge $10. Then for each unit you sell, $10, the price you receive minus the cost of $5. So the difference becomes $5. So at the higher price, your profit per unit you sell will be greater, and so you will have a greater incentive to sell more units. If a price goes down, then what? You will have a weaker incentive to produce and sell a good, because the profit you receive, enjoy for each unit sale will become is smaller. So that's why when price goes down, you have a weaker incentive to sell the product. So here, unlike the law of demand, where we observe an inverse or negative relationship between the price and the quantity demanded of a good, now on the seller's side of the market, actually we observe a positive relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied of the good. In other words, as the price rises, sellers will have a greater incentive to sell more of the good. So the law of demand is what states an inverse relationship, a negative relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. But on the seller's side, it is the opposite. There is a positive relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied of the good. That positive relationship is called the law of supply. So what is the supply schedule? Well, we seldom use a supply schedule, but we're going to briefly talk about it. A table that shows the relationship here, again, a positive relationship, okay? A positive relationship between prices of a good and the corresponding quantities supplied of the good. So look at this table. It shows two columns, just like demand schedule. The first column lists different prices of latte. So here we have 7 different prices from $0 to $6. So as the price increases, then sellers of lattes, the amount of lattes sellers want to sell is also increasing here. As the price rises, then they want to supply more and more lattes, because as the price keeps rising, then what? As we discussed here, sellers can expect a higher profit for each unit sale. So here in this table, you can see a positive relationship between price of lattes and the quantity supplied of lattes. That is the law of supply. And the law of supply is depicted in a table like this. We call this the supply schedule. Then what is a supply curve? Well, the same information that we saw in the supply schedule can be depicted in a slightly different way. So now this figure actually combines a supply curve and it's a supply schedule. So exactly the same supply schedule here that we discussed a minute ago. And here, so how many pairs do you have? We have 7 different prices and 7 different quantities supplied of lattes. So for each pair, so we're going to plot each pair in the price quantity space here. So the price of lattes, that information is now what? Depicted, represented along the vertical axis here. So price changes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. And then quantities supplied of lattes, now they are represented here along the horizontal axis. Then when we plot each pair, so at the price of 0, quantity supplied is 0, so 0 here. Okay, so let me mark here A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we have 7 different pairs. So this is obviously what? Pair A, and this is B. When price is 1, sellers are willing and able to supply 3 lattes, for example. And then the next one is a C, D, E, F, G here. So what do you see? As the price keeps rising, then quantity supplied of lattes is increasing. So that means what? As the price rises, how does a seller, or how do sellers respond, react to an increase in the price of lattes? They increase the quantity supplied. So that means as the price keeps rising, then what? We move from point A to point B, and then from point B to point C, then from point C to point D. So here, as price rises, we move up. Here we means actually sellers. We move up along the supply curve. So the positive relationship between price and the quantities supplied, now that is represented here, what? A positively sloped supply curve. So positively sloped or upward sloping supply curve. So positive relationship between price and quantity supplied is what we call the law of supply. And that positive relationship is depicted here by a positively sloped or upward sloping supply curve. So this one figure does represent a lot of information. First, it is upward positively sloped curve. So this is a supply curve. And this also shows the law of supply, because the positively sloped curve shows a positive relationship between price and the quantity supplied. Okay. And then remember this, as the price continues to rise, then what do we see here? An increase in quantity demanded, or put differently, we move from one point to another. We move upward from one point to another along the supply curve. Okay, so here, as the price rises, we move up along the supply curve from one point to another. Okay. Now, then what is a market supply? Well, in a market, we have what? Multiple sellers, suppliers. So when we add up the quantity supplied of a good by each individual seller, okay, when we add them up, then we come up with the market supply curve. So here we have another figure from the textbook. So here, think of the market for ice cream cones. And even though it is not realistic, for the sake of simplicity, we assume there are two sellers, suppliers, Ben and Jerry. So Ben's individual supply curve is what? Simply the relationship between prices and Ben's quantity supplied of ice cream cones. So here we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different prices and the 7 different quantities supplied of ice cream cones by Ben. And that is what? If you plot these 7 pairs, then you will have a supply curve like this. Now, using the same set of prices, now you look at the quantity supplied of ice cream cones by Jerry, and that is now what? Plotted right here. So at any given price, the market supply, the quantity supplied of ice cream cones is what? You add up Ben's quantity supplied of ice cream cones and the Jerry's quantity supplied of ice cream cones. So for example, at the price of 2, Ben is willing and able to sell 3 ice cream cones. Jerry is willing and able to provide 4 ice cream cones. So total, the sum of what individual quantities supplied by ice cream cones will be 7. So at the price of 2, here Ben is willing to sell 3 units, 3 ice cream cones. Jerry is willing to 4. So in a market, as a whole market supply at the unit price of 2, the quantity supplied by ice cream cones will be what? 7. Okay. Now, what are the shifts in the supply curve? Now, let me back up again to make sure that you have a correct understanding of what? Supply curve. So here, we have a positively sloped supply curve. So when the price of lattes changes, what happens? As the price rises, sellers will find sales of lattes more profitable. So sellers will have a greater incentive, stronger incentive to sell more lattes. So that's why the relationship between price of lattes and the quantities supplied of lattes is positive. And that is depicted by an upward sloping supply curve here. So what do you see here? As the price rises from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, then what? Sellers are providing more or greater number of lattes. So that is what? In terms of a graph here, as the price rises, then what? You move from one point to another. You move upward from one point to another. So when price changes, then what happens? You move upward from one point to another along the given supply curve. But our next topic here is what? Shift. So what are the shifts in the supply curve? That means it's not moving along the given supply curve. The whole supply curve is shifting either to the right or to the left. So here, any change that increases the quantity that sellers wish to sell, the quantity that sellers wish to sell is simply what? This is what we call quantity supplied. So any change that causes the quantity supplied to increase, okay, that is called an increase in supply, or we say a rightward shift of the supply curve. Likewise, any change that decreases the quantity that sellers wish to sell. So this is again simply the definition of a quantity supplied, right? So any changes that causes the quantity supplied to decrease at any given price, then we say there is a decrease in supply or a leftward shift of the supply curve. So let me use this couple of graphs here. So first example here, at any given price, so suppose the price is here 10. Initially, sellers were providing 50 units of a good, so good Y, for example. Then all of a sudden, at the same price, now they are providing more units. So you may ask them, hey, why do you sell more units? Is that because the price of the product increased? They say, no, price is still the same, $10. But there are something else that cause us, that incentivize us to produce and sell more. So whenever the supply curve is shifting, the price is not the cause of such a shift. There is something else. So price remains the same here. Price did not rise or fall. Yet sellers, for some reason, to produce and sell greater number of units of this product. When this happens, we say supply increases, or there is an increase in supply. And so obviously, same price, but the quantity supplied is now what? Much larger, increased from 50 units to 90 units. When this happens, we say there is an increase in supply, and the only way you can depict this situation is what? You have to draw a new supply curve, and the new supply curve must appear to the right of the initial supply curve. And of course, in a minute, we're going to talk about factors that cause sellers to increase their quantity supplied, or factors that cause the supply of a good, supply curve of a good to shift to the right. Now, second graph shows the opposite. Same price. Previously, sellers used to provide 90 units. So previously, at the $10, the price quantity supplied was 90. But for some reason, now even at the same price, at any given price, sellers are now providing much less than before, only 50 units. Did they sell less, or did they decrease the quantity supplied because the price got any lower? No. Price is still the same, $10. But for some reason, they provide and sell less. So we do know price is not the cause of what? Shift in supply. So for the same price, even without a change in price, when sellers decide to produce and sell less, when quantity supplied of a good decreases, then what we say there is a decrease in supply, and graphically it is what? Represented by a leftward shift of the supply curve. The new supply curve appears to the left of the initial supply curve. Then what are those factors? So what makes a supply curve shift to the right or to the left? What causes the supply of a good to increase or decrease? What are the factors that cause a supply curve to shift either to the right or to the left? So here we have a few of those factors. First, input prices. Now, to produce and sell a good or service, it does take many resources. You have to use labor, you have to use utilities, and you also have to use some raw materials. So when the prices of those input or resources increase or decrease, then what? The good becomes what? Less profitable or more profitable. So here we're going to use a simple example. Let's say you are selling something at the unit price of $10. And then the cost per unit used to be $6. So in this case, whenever you produce and sell one unit, how much profit do you enjoy? You receive $10, but the unit cost you only $6. So what? You enjoy a profit of $4. But market conditions constantly change. So let's say, well, you still charge the same price, $10 per unit, but let's say the one of the input prices fell. Okay, for example, gas price got much lower, and also utility price goes down. So let's say, as a result, as input prices fall, so what now cost per unit. Previously, each unit cost you $6, but this time it costs you only what? $5. So whenever input prices go down, your business becomes more profitable, lucrative. So in this case, after input prices went down, now if you sell the one unit of the same product, then you still receive $10, but each unit costs you what? Dollar less. So this time, whenever you sell one unit, you enjoy a profit of what? $5, dollar more. So when your business becomes more profitable, lucrative, then you will have a greater incentive, stronger incentive to sell more units. So graphically, for example, here, price and quantity. And here's your supply curve. Okay, so this is what? Supply curve before input price falls. Now, so price is 10 here. Okay, so used to sell 50 units. But after input price falls, then what? You enjoy a greater profit. So you go after bigger profit. So what? Even at the same price now, what? You produce and sell more units, let's say 90 units. So what? New supply curve. Let me use a slightly different color here. Let's say, so here now, new supply curve after input price fell is now what? Here, appearing to the right of the original initial supply curve. So same price at the unit price 10, now what? The associated, the corresponding quantity supplied is much greater. So, as I said earlier, price is not the cause of the shift of a supply curve, but input price went down, and as a result, the production and sale of your product become more profitable. So you want to produce and sell more. The quantity supplied increases. So now what? At the same price here, new quantity supplied is here. So what? The only way you can show a new pair, same old price, but larger quantity supplied. The only way you can represent such change is what? You have to draw new supply curve. And the new supply curve will appear to the right of the initial supply curve. Now, technology. Well, here, when we say technology, actually, we are referring to cost-saving technology here. Okay, so this technology here means actually we're talking about cost-saving technology. Okay, and the newer technology enables you to produce the same amount of output at lower cost, because such cost-saving technology makes your production a lot more efficient. So same amount of output can be produced at a lower cost, or for the same cost, now you can produce more output. That's the saving technology. So here, in essence, the availability of a cost-saving technology is almost what? It is equivalent to the what? Decreases in input prices. So it has the same impact. So here, for example, here we have supply curve, price, and quantity. And let's say this is the initial supply curve. And the price is, let's say, again, 10. And you used to produce and sell 50 units. So, but this is what? Before new technology. Now, a new technology, a new cost-saving technology becomes available. Okay, so that means even when you charge the same price, now you can produce each unit at lower cost thanks to new cost-saving technology. So as your business becomes more profitable, so you want to produce and supply 90 units. So how can you show this new pair? Price, unit price 10, new quantity supplied 90. The only way you can do so is what? You have to draw a new supply curve. So this new supply curve is what? After new cost-saving technology becomes available. So obviously you see here what? Rightward shift of the supply curve. Because at the same price, now the quantity associated, the quantity supplied is much bigger than before. Okay. So here, is the price the cause of the shift? No. Even at the same price, sellers have a stronger incentive to produce and sell more, thanks to new cost-saving technology, because their business becomes more profitable. Now, expectations. So as a buyers form the expectations about future prices, sellers do exactly the same thing. Okay, so whenever sellers form some expectations about future price, how does that affect the supply curve? How will it shift the supply curve? Okay, so that's the question here. So expectations. So here, so we're gonna draw again demand and I'm sorry, supply curve. Okay, so here we're gonna draw another supply curve here. So price and quantity supplied here. So let's say this is the what? Initial supply curve. Okay. And now, what if sellers expect the future price to be lower? Or you can also change the word, like what if sellers expect the future price to be higher? So we're going to discuss the first case here. Suppose currently price is 10 and they are selling about 50 units, okay? And then for some reason now sellers expect the future price to be lower than today's price. So right now, today they are selling each unit at the unit price of $10. But they expect future price to be lower. So they think they may not be able to charge $10 in near future. So then what's going to happen? Are you going to wait until the actual price falls? Or do you want to sell more units today before the price falls? Well, obviously, profit-oriented sellers who are motivated by profits, would like to sell more units today before the price falls in near future. So that means when they expect future price to be lower than what, they don't want to hold on to their products any longer until price actually falls. They want to what, part with the products today before the price falls. So they are willing to, okay, so they are willing to sell more, release more product in the marketplace before actually what, price falls. So new supply curve is here, and what, this is when they expect lower price in near future. Likewise, if they expect the future price to be higher, then what? Well, this would be the opposite case. Okay, so here let me use again supply curve. So again here, so this is the what, price and quantity supplied, and the initial supply curve is here, and let's say price is at 10, and let's say they were currently what, selling, let's say 90 units. But they say they somehow form expectations about future price, and somehow they think they're going to be able to sell their product at a much higher price in near future. Then sellers who are motivated by profits, now what? Hey, I don't want to sell too many units today because I think the price will be much higher soon. So what? I'm gonna what? Hold on to some units, and I'm gonna release these units what? Once market price is higher. Okay. What in real estate market, when the property owners, when they expect the real estate price to be higher soon, then what? They're going to take the properties off the marketplace and then what? Hold on to them, and then later they post them again. Just like that. So sellers, when they expect future price to be higher than what, they're going to take some units off the market and wait, and then they want to release them again in the marketplace when price is higher. So that's exactly what happens. So once they form such expectation, then what? They're going to reduce the quantity supplied what? And then wait until market price is higher. So new supply curve appears what? To the left of what? The initial supply curve. So here, was there any change in today's price? No, still $10. But simply as they form different expectations about future price, they may increase or decrease the quantity supplied today. That causes what? The supply curve to shift either to the right or to the left. Now, number of sellers. Well, as more and more sellers join the marketplace, then what? Market size is growing. Okay. If there are more pumpkin producers, if the number of pumpkin producers increases, then what? At any given market price, the total amount of pumpkins made available in the marketplace will be greater, right? So that's exactly what's happening. So here, again, we draw a supply curve, price and quantity supplied, and here's the initial supply curve. So at the unit price of 10, let's say, 50 units of the product is made available. They are made available. But after more sellers join the market, then what's going to happen? Simply, more sellers mean more greater quantity supplied. So even at the same price, it's just simply the more sellers join the market, then what? There will be greater quantity supplied, and the new supply curve will be what? To the right of the initial supply curve. Of course, if the number of sellers decreases, then what? The supply curve will shift it the other way, to the left. So now we finished the discussion of the seller's side of the market. Now we are ready to combine both sides of the market. So we are ready to combine demand and supply all together so we can discuss the whole market. Okay. So supply and demand together. So what is the equilibrium? Well, believe it or not, the paradigm that we use in modern economics was borrowed heavily from physical science, physics. In physics, equilibrium means the balance of what? Two opposite forces. So think of this. We have an object here. We have an object here. So we have an object here. So we're going to apply two forces in opposite directions. So one force is applied this way, and that the other force is applied to the object this way. Now, if these two opposing forces are equally strong, then the two opposing forces will be canceled, and the object will not budge at all. Okay, so now think about a marketplace. We have buyers and sellers in that marketplace. And demand represents buyer's behavior, and the supply side of the market represents seller's behavior. So two market forces. Let's say this is demand, and let's say this force is, let's say, supply. And there are two, that's exactly what we call two market forces. So if demand is stronger than supply, then what? If people buy more than sellers can supply, then what? Price will rise. If sellers produce more than buyers want, then what? There will be a lot of unsold units and the price will fall. But if the amount the buyers want, the amount the sellers produce, if these two are exactly the same, then what? Then there won't be any change in the price. Like these two opposing forces are of equal strength, then what? This object will not budge. So that's what we mean by the equilibrium. So we actually borrowed this paradigm from physics. So a situation in which the market price has reached the level at which quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Okay. When that happens, then we say market is in equilibrium. Okay. So let me write this down here. A market is said to be in equilibrium when quantity demanded. Okay, let me denote the quantity demanded here by quantity demanded QD, and the quantity supplied, let's say QS, when quantity demanded is exactly the same as a quantity supplied at a given price. So when that happens, then at that price, then what? Because since the quantity people want to buy is exactly the same as what quantity sellers want to produce and sell, so what? There won't be any shortage. There won't be any surplus either. So neither surplus nor shortage exist in equilibrium. Okay. All right. So then what is the equilibrium price? What exactly what? The price at which quantity supplied QS is the same as quantity demanded QD. So quantity supplied QS is exactly the same as quantity demanded QD. So that price is called equilibrium price. And what is the equilibrium quantity? At the equilibrium, we said what? The quantity supplied is the same as a quantity demanded. So that quantity is what? Simply the equilibrium quantity. Okay. All right. So we're going to use now the more the visual, concrete example here. So now we are analyzing the whole market, both buyer's side and the seller's side of the market combined together. So here, this graph depicts a market for ice cream cones. So here, first, ignore supply curve. Just look at demand curve. So demand curve is negatively sloped, which means the relationship between the price and quantity demanded of ice cream cones is an inverse, negative. As the price rises, people consume smaller the number of ice cream cones, and the price fall. As the price falls, people tend to consume a greater number of ice cream cones. So here, at this given price, at the unit price of 2, what's the quantity demanded? So quantity demanded is what? So along the given demand curve, so all we need to do what? Find, identify the quantity associated with the $2. So at this price along the demand curve, quantity demanded is what? 7. Now this time, ignore the demand curve and just focus on the supply curve. At this price, the quantity supplied, the quantity sellers want to provide is what? Along the supply curve, the quantity associated with this price is also 7. So quantity supplied is also 7. So at this price, what do we know? Quantity demanded is the same as quantity supplied, and that is 7. So this is equilibrium of the market, because at this quantity and this price, we don't see any surplus, unsold ice cream cones, or we don't see any shortage of ice cream cones. So it's completely balanced. So simply put, we can describe market equilibrium in more than one way. Market equilibrium is achieved when quantity demanded is exactly the same as quantity supplied, or you may put it differently, or quantity demanded minus quantity supplied is 0, because they are the same. No shortage, no surplus. Okay, so this means what? Neither surplus nor shortage. Okay. Or graphically, what does that mean? Equilibrium occurs when? At the intersection of the demand and the supply curves. The equilibrium occurs right here where these two curves intersect. And at that intersection, you can read the price and you can read the quantity. So that is equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Okay. So what is a surplus of a good, or what is a shortage of a good? At the price, if quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. So if quantity supplied is, let me back up here, erase, okay. At the price, if quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, so that means what? There will be some unsold units because sellers produced more than buyers needed. So whenever it happens, then what? We say there is a surplus of a good, or we say there is what? Excess supply of the good. So surplus means what? Excess supply. On the other hand, the shortage means what? Quantity supplied is what? Not enough to satisfy all the needs or wants of what? Buyers. So quantity demanded, the amount buyers want to buy, consumes greater than the amount available. So that means what? Not enough units to satisfy buyers' needs or wants. And we call that one excess demand. That happens whenever quantity supplied is smaller than quantity demanded. So now, so we can actually use the graph to further enhance your understanding of excessive supply or excess demand. So excessive supply is what? This is a situation of what? A surplus of a good, and this is a shortage, excess demand. So we do know surplus happens whenever quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, and the shortage happens whenever quantity supplied is smaller than quantity demanded. So in this graph, when is quantity supplied greater than quantity demanded? So here, I said, we now know that at the intersection of the demand and supply curves, now what? We achieve market equilibrium, because at this intersection or at this price, equilibrium price, quantity demanded is exactly the same as quantity supplied. But at any price above the market equilibrium price, what happens? If price is rising above 2, then sellers are happier because they expect what? Greater profit. So they have an incentive to produce more than before. So as the price rises above $2, then what? Above the equilibrium price, sellers increase the production. So what? Quantity supplied is now here. At any price above equilibrium price, quantity supplied is here. But as the price rises, buyers are not happy at all because they have to pay more for each unit than before. So some people will drop out of the market. Some people may choose not to buy it. So quantity demanded is now shrinking, smaller than before. So here, at the unit price of $2.50, which is above the equilibrium price, quantity supplied is now what? 10. Quantity demanded is only 4. So there will be what? 6 units of what? unsold product. So surplus exists. That happens whenever price is set above the equilibrium price. Now, on the other hand, the shortage means what? Whenever price falls below the equilibrium price, now buyers are happy because they can buy something at the price for a price lower than before. So they want to buy more. That's the law of demand. As the price falls, they want to buy more. But what about sellers? According to the law of supply, they have a greater incentive to sell more, but they have a weaker incentive as the price falls. So as the price falls from $2 to $1.50, as the price falls below the equilibrium price, then now what? Sellers have a weaker incentive to sell. So they produce what? Much less than before. So quantity supplied is now 4, quantity demanded is now what? 10. So people want to buy 10 units, but only 4 units become available. So they are experiencing shortage. That's exactly what happens when price falls below $1.50. Okay. So when surplus exists, what happens? As there are some unsold units, then what? Some impatient sellers will start what? Offering lower and lower price until they are able to sell all of their units. So whenever there is a surplus in the marketplace, then what? There will be pressure on the price, and the price will start falling toward equilibrium price. Whenever there is a shortage, then what? Some impatient buyers will start what? Offering higher and higher price. So shortage will drive up the market price until what? Until the equilibrium is restored. Okay. Now, all we need to do is now what? We apply our understandings to real problems. Okay. So now I'm not going to get into, we're not going to have what? Really in-depth analysis of what? Market analysis. But here, I just want you to taste them a little bit. So here, we're going to discuss what? 3 different examples. First, when the buyer's side of market alone changes, when demand alone changes. Second, when the supply side of the market alone changes. In other words, when the supply alone changes. And then finally, when both sides of the market change. In other words, when both demand and supply change simultaneously at the same time. So we can predict the market outcome here in each case. So example 1, when the demand alone changes. So here, initially, demand and supply, they were in equilibrium right here initially. Okay. And then, so this is what? Again, the market for ice cream cones. So what happens? So suppose there was what? Sudden weather change. So unexpectedly now what? We have a hot weather. Okay. So unexpected heat wave has hit what? Our region. So now all of a sudden, people want to increase the consumption of ice cream cones. Is that because the price of ice cream cones dropped? No. Even at the same price, now all of a sudden, as a heat wave arrives in this area, so what? People want to consume more ice cream cones. So here, initially what? Market was in equilibrium. Equilibrium price was $2, and the 7 ice cream cones were consumed or sold. So now price was okay, exactly the same price, but all of a sudden, something other than price changes. So something other than price changes. So here's something, in this case, example is what? Sudden change in weather condition. So as it gets hotter and hotter, then what? People want to buy, consume more ice cream cones. So even at the same price, now what? People want to buy more ice cream cones here. So quantity demanded initially what? Was just 7. So now new quantity demanded is what? Much bigger here. Okay. So now what happens? As the demand curve is shifting to the right, an increase in demand for ice cream cones due to hot weather. So demand curve is slowly shifting to the right like this. Okay, slowly shifting to the right. So as the demand curve continues to shift to the right, then what? Market will have a new equilibrium. So new supply curve intersects supply curve here, new demand curve intersects supply curve here, again here. So finally what? Let's say the demand curve stopped shifting to the right. Okay. So finally, demand curve now shifted to the right and stopped right here. Okay. So then what? We have now new market equilibrium here. Okay. So here we have, let's say, new market equilibrium here. So new demand curve, that was, this is before the heat wave in this area. This is after heat wave arrived here. So now new demand curve is cutting, intersecting the supply curve right here. So we were initially at the point A. This is what? A is what? The initial equilibrium. And now this is at the point B. New demand curve cuts supply curve here. So this is what? The new equilibrium. So what happens? At the new equilibrium, the price of ice cream cones is what? Higher than before. And the equilibrium quantity, the total number of ice cream cones bought, sold, is what? Also greater than before. So both price increased and quantity also increased. So we at the new equilibrium, price is higher than before, and the equilibrium quantity is also greater than before. So this is just one example of how to use demand and supply analysis. Okay. Now, another example, when supply alone changes, okay, well, to produce ice cream cones, well, certainly one key ingredient is what? Ingredient is sugar. So initial market equilibrium was here. Let's say A, initial market equilibrium. So here, say price was 2, and let's say cost was per ice cream cone was, let's say, per cone was, let's say dollar. But after sugar price went up, so same price, but now cost per cone is now what? Let's say $1.20. Then before, when you sold each ice cream cone, you received $2, but cost $1, and so the difference is $1. So you enjoy the profit of $1 for the sale of each ice cream cone. But now, after sugar price went up, at the same price you charge, now cost is what? $1.20. So after you sell each unit of the one ice cream cone, the profit is now what? Only 80 cents. So profit is reduced. So sellers have a weaker incentive to produce and sell ice cream cones. So even at the same price, as a profit is what? Reduced. So what? Now, even at the same price, previously what? Quantity supplied was here. Now new quantity supplied is much smaller. So this is a new quantity supplied. So that means what? Supply curve is shifting to the left as input price rises. So let's say the leftward shift of supply curve stopped right here at the point B. So new supply curve intersects demand curve right here. So we have a new equilibrium, market equilibrium at the B. Now compare equilibrium at point B with the old equilibrium, initial equilibrium at point A. What happens? As your sugar price rises, the cost of producing cones, ice cream cones also rises. Okay. So it becomes less profitable. So as a result, sellers sell less than before, smaller number of cones before. So that's exactly why the supply curve has shifted to the left. So at the new equilibrium now, what do you see? Price is higher than before, and the total number of ice cream cones purchased, sold will be smaller than before. So you can predict a new market outcome, equilibrium price and quantity, by using what? Simple demand supply analysis whenever an event occurs. In this particular example, the event is what? An increase in the price of what? It's a key ingredient, sugar. And the last example of this session will be what? When we combine changes in demand and supply altogether. In other words, when both demand and supply change altogether. So here, at the initial equilibrium, let's say mark A here, and the price is P1 and Q1. Now, but we're not going to get into details of these changes. Okay. So let's say an event or two occur, and those events affected the market simultaneously. So demand increased and supply decreased. So here, let's say hot weather and an increase in the price of sugar. These two events are taking place at the same time. So hot weather increased the demand, and an increase in the sugar price decreased supply. So that's why supply curve shifted to the left, and the demand curve shifted to the right. But in this example, we assumed that demand curve shifted to the right a lot more than supply curve shifted to the left. So in that case, now what happens? New demand curve intersects new supply curve here. So we have a new market equilibrium at the point B. So now you compare two market equilibria here at the point B compared to point A. Price is higher than before, and the equilibrium quantity is also greater than before. So in this case, maybe what? The impact of hot weather on demand is much greater than the impact of what? Higher sugar price on supply. Of course, you can change you can make a different assumptions about the change, the magnitude of changes. So here, for example, again, same example. So here, two events occur at the same time. The heat wave and an increase in sugar price. But this time we assume the impact on sugar prices. So sugar price increased dramatically. The impact of the sugar price on supply is much greater than the impact on demand of a heat wave. So as you can see here, we shifted supply curve a lot more to the left than the demand curve, shift of demand curve to the right here. Okay. So initial equilibrium was here. So price is P1, equilibrium quantity is Q1. But at the new equilibrium, price is higher than before, but new equilibrium quantity is smaller than before. Okay. So do not try to memorize anything out of this example. All you need to remember here is what? When both demand and supply curves change simultaneously at the same time, then what? Depending on which curve shifts more than the other, or which impact is greater, okay, the market outcomes could be different. So compare these two. In both cases, the same events occurred, heat wave and an increase in the price of sugar. But when impact of a heat wave on demand was much greater than the impact on the supply of what? Sugar price, then what? Both price and equilibrium quantity increased. But exactly the same set of events, but this time we assumed the impact on the supply of a higher sugar price was much greater than the impact on the demand of a heat wave. Then still price is much higher than before, but what? Equilibrium quantity was actually smaller than before. So don't try to memorize this. So if you simply draw demand and supply curves and then what? Shift each curve by different magnitude, then what? You can easily predict the future market outcome. So the last example is quite challenging, but you will have a lot of fun when you when you are ready to apply, when you apply these basic demand supply analysis to some real the market problems. Okay, well, this session was quite long, but this will conclude the part 2 of chapter 4 lecture. Thank you.